Who would help us? That song. The villagers came forward to help with paltry sum of money, given or sketches of land, and some other such meager sources of assistance. The blessings came in the form of the great economist Dr. Dhananjaya Panikat and many such helping persons for help. And that within no time, our dreams of cooperative sugar factory was transformed into a reality in 1990. It was Asia's first ever cooperative venture of its kind. A number of schools and institutions were established, some even exclusive for girls. The cooperative movement opened the floodgates of happiness, progress, and prosperity in this region for all of us. As the cooperative movement gained momentum, each and every person born on the soil was motivated. Total transformation of their life and region became the singular aim of their life. But this required tremendous amount of funds. Considering limitations of cooperative credit societies, the village initiated a bank on the meager capital of few hundred rupees. Today, it is a scheduled bank and its turnover is in billions.
Video plays or sir? Sir, video plays follow.
Yes, in billions of rupees. I always used to feel that the women and the children of soil is the center of all developments. Therefore, a number of projects concerning
No, this is on.
initiated. They proved instrumental in igniting and nurturing their self-respect and self-reliance. The government of India recognized Ravana mechanism, Padma Shri and doctorate that conferred upon me. Well, one man's life would never be enough for development of a region, particularly as backward as that mine. I often wish this noble task has to be carried forward by my progeny and generations to come. My son, Baba Sahib, developed a wide network of institutions in this area and neighboring regions.
Hello? Hello?
I am very happy to see that the work of Baba Sahib was recognized and doctorate were conferred upon him. Being the proud son of the soil that he is, Baba Sahib realized actually that the rural masses to numerous health problems. Since health is directly related to their productive, accessible, affordable, and effective immediate exigence. And in 1972, my Pravara witnessed the establishment of Pravara Medical Trust. The Pravara Hospital holds regular multi-diagnostic treatment camps for the rural poor and needy in Ahmednagar district and also in neighboring villages. These camps are completely free of cost, thereby ensuring that healthcare facilities reach to all my people. I feel so satisfied to see that hospital provides quality services to rural people, and hospital has been upgraded with ultra-modern diagnostic and treatment facilities. My Pravana children get free medical help through regular checkups in their own schools. My immortal soul rested in peace when my son announced the policy of completely free treatment to all children and elderly people. Some deserving cases, apart from this, are treated free. These efforts were also recognized by the Government of India, and Pravara Hospital has been conferred the National Award of Best Institution for providing services to senior citizens and awareness generation. I feel happy when I witness number of medical students of this college serving as ambassadors of the mission of trust in remote rural areas.
We are adopted 5 families each in our first year from an adopted village, and we continue to follow them for 5.5 years, including in our internship. We study various factors like socio-economic, cultural, environmental, and behavioral patterns in the context of rural health.
After assessing the academic and the research excellence achieved at the global level, the health services rendered to the rural community in the last 25 years, the University Grants Commission, UGC, Government of India, bestowed the status of deemed university to Pravara Institute of Medical Science. I feel so proud to see that Pravara Institute of Medical Sciences deemed university is one of the pioneer medical universities, wherein the constituent colleges are implementing problem-based learning. And more important is, the main emphasis is on community-based medical education. To bridge the gap between ever-increasing demands of the dental personnel in rural areas, Pravara witnessed the establishment of rural dental college. The main focus is to impart community-based dental education, improve awareness in oral hygiene, and provide super specialized dental treatments to the rural masses.
I applied for Masters in Global Health of Global Integration at Karolinska Institute at Stockholm, Sweden. My objective at Karolinska was to compare the European system of education with the Indian system of education. I was surprised to see that though our institution is located in rural India, yet it is so well known in Europe and especially Karolinska.
Hi, my name is Heather Johnson, and I'm from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. I've really enjoyed my time here at Pravara Institute of Medical Sciences. I've got to see and experience so many things that I would otherwise not have been able to see in the United States.
We have always aimed at holistic approach to healthcare and creating facilities under one roof.
Yes, ma'am.
The Pravara Medical Trust encompasses all disciplines,
Okay.
including the College of Physiotherapy.
हाँ तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है वो एक बार ये क्या बोलते हैं प्रदीप सर को
I feel immensely privileged that Dr. Abdul Kalam had visited here in
Vijay is
2005
unable to put
and appreciated the efforts
Vijay is unable to put the
in rehabilitation.
the chat box.
I appreciate my family.
The chat box मुझे काफी
The Center for Social Medicine strives to integrate health with other sectors for overall development through community-oriented medical education and research. The center trains public health professionals at global level and skill development programs at grassroots level. The center has been implementing comprehensive rural, tribal, and urban community health services and interventional research projects, which are supported by national and state health ministries, 500 International USA, IE3 Global Internship Program USA, and Global Fund to Fight ATM, etc. Following the advice of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the trust has taken the responsibility of a replication of Pravara healthcare model in other rural areas of the state of Maharashtra. The values of tireless endeavors towards a cherished goal and social responsibility inculcated in me by my mother and grandmother fueled me with passion to pursue my ultimate goal. The mission transcends all barriers and the passion continues. My Pravara, a living phenomenon of complete transformation. Oh, I am so happy. I am so very happy. People should not have to go out of Pravara for any fundamental help whatsoever, be it education, health, or employment. That was my dream, the dream that is now a reality. Pravara, the mission continues.
First. एक बार चेक कर लो. All right. Very good morning to all the participants. Welcome to Pravara Physio Webinar Series 2020. The webinar 2, we are here to host the webinar 2 on the topic basics of orthopedic implants by Dr. Praful Herode sir. Our Pravara Institute of Medical Science, deemed to be an university, was established under Section 3 of the UGC Act 1956 on 29 September 2003. Pravara Medical Trust is a parent organization of the university and was established in 1972 in a small village of Bhumi of Ahmednagar district by a visionary Padma Shri Dr. Vittal Rao Vikhe Patil sir. The founder and the founder of cooperative movement in India, we pay a sincere tribute to sir and seek his blessing to conduct this webinar successfully. In 1976, the trust started providing primary and secondary level medical care with the establishment of a modest hospital of 100 beds, and over a period of time, the hospital grew into over more than 1,200 beds, multidisciplinary super specialty medical institute with a state-of-the-art facility. Founder, Patil sir, the medical college started in 1984, and then we are moving ahead with the following institutes under this ambit of university: the Pravara Rural Medical College and Hospital, Rural Dental College and Hospital, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam College of Physiotherapy, College of Nursing, Center for Social Medicine, and Center for Biotechnology. We pay our sincere tribute to Sir and seek his blessing to follow his footsteps to a such vision that we at Pravara are following: think globally, act locally. The university is unique in more than one way, as it is specialized in medical and health sciences with a dedication to serve the society as a center of excellence with emphasis on socially meaningful medical education, healthcare, and research. The trust has received accolades from His Excellency Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sir, the former President of India, for the pioneer work done in the field of integrated rural development and appreciated the participative model of integral rural development followed at Loni as role model for the development of rural India, and has been referred by His Excellency as operative model of PURA, PURA, the providing urban amenities to rural areas. To acknowledge the vision of His Excellency College of Physiotherapy named after him as Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam College of Physiotherapy. The Department of Physiotherapy was established in 1976 at Pravara Rural Hospital to cater to the preventive, curative, therapeutic, and rehabilitation needs of the rural people. Need was felt to impart the much needed physiotherapy training program, and hence Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam College was established in 1997. Our college offers all the programs of physiotherapy. We are offering BPT, MPT, and PhD. We have 5 departments and 1 center in our college: Department of Orthopedic Physiotherapy, Department of Neurophysiotherapy, Department of Cardiorespiratory Physiotherapy, Department of Community Physiotherapy, Department of Pediatric Physiotherapy, and a Spinal Cord Injury Rehab Center, which is named after the mother of the soil, late Srimati Sindhudai Vikhe Patil ma'am, as Srimati Sindhudai Vikhe Patil Spinal Cord Injury Rehab Center. We pay our sincere tribute to ma'am and seek her blessing for the success organization of this webinar. Student of our college received international scholarship for higher studies at universities. Erasmus Mundus Scholarship Program, and under this program, students and faculty from both the sides receives international scholarship, which covers transportation, hostel facility, and tuition fees for higher studies in partner universities. We had a student exchange program under the Linus Army Scholarship Program at Physiotherapy Division, Karolinska Institute, Sweden, and many more will go on. Now, I, Dr. Neeraj Kumar, Head of Department in the Department of Orthopedic Physiotherapy, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam College of Physiotherapy, on behalf of an entire Pravara family, welcomes you all to this knowledge amalgamation webinar on a very important topic: basics of orthopedic implants, by our keynote speaker, Dr. Prafulla Herode sir. Dr. Prafulla Herode sir has done his MS Ortho and MBBS both from the prestigious BJ Medical College, Pune. He has fellowship in Joint Replacement, Mumbai, fellowship in Elizarov International Center, Akola. Sir is presently working as professor at Department of Orthopedics, Pravara Institute of Medical Sciences, Loni. Sir is specialized in having responsibility of joint replacement, and revision joint replacement surgeries, arthroscopic surgeries of the knee, ACL, particularly ACL reconstruction, arthroplasty of the hip, spine surgeries, hip, knee and hand injuries, limb lengthening and other orthopedic corrections, and cold orthopedic surgeries, and other complex trauma. Sir is having more than 20 years of teaching and clinical experience and having around 14 paper publication in international and national journals. Now, with all the blessings of our Honorable Pro-Chancellor Sir and Dr. Rajendra Vikhe Patil Sir and Honorable Vice-Chancellor Professor Dr. Y.M. Jairaj Sir, we are ready to start our first webinar. Before starting the webinar, I would request you all participants to please follow certain rule. Like we'll have a certain question answer session at the end of the session. So whosoever here have any confusion or any doubt, please raise your hand, and we'll give chance to one by one to everyone to ask their question. We'll unmute them and they can ask their question. And second thing, we'll send the feedback link to all participants. So after the session, we'll send the feedback link, and we request you all to fill the feedback form for our regular upgradation. Now I request our keynote speaker, Dr. Prafulla Herode Sir, to start with his session. Sir, over to you. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for such a nice introduction. Myself, Dr. Prafulla Herode. I am the head of the department at Praura Medical College, Loni. Okay, today I am going to take you down the, show you the orthopedic implants that are used, that we do in the operation theatre, and take you down the history of orthopedics. This is what the normal trolley, what we do in whenever we are operating, the trolley in our OT looks like. You can see more the instruments that are being used here, and these are the various implants that we use. So that will remind you mostly of the job is like a carpenter. Okay, so this is a drill. Okay. Yeah, this is just to show you how the operation goes on. This is the operation of the tibia, leg bone, and this is what we are doing, a plating of the tibia. So these are very specialized instruments, not the instruments that you see every day. A very good imported drill can cost anywhere between 15 to 20 lakhs. Okay. And this has got various attachments. Where what you see here is a drill bit attached to this, and with after this you can attach all the reamers and whatever various things to this, and saw also can be attached to this. Okay, this is what is this is called as a mallet. Okay, and this you can see that being hammered. It is one of the surgeries we use it to hammer the implant inside. This is a bone curette. Okay, so this is used to curette out sharp edges of the bone. Okay, these are the various bone holding forces. They come in various sizes and shapes. These are used to hold the bones. Okay, here you can see it being used to achieve reduction. This is called as a pointed bone holding forceps. Okay, this is a bone nibbler. This is used to nibble out bone. In the operation theatre, this is used to nibble out bone. So these are the various instruments that are being used. Okay, and now we come to, these are again the various instruments used. This is the chisel and the osteotome and periosteum elevator. These are used to cut bone. The periosteum elevator is used to elevate the periosteum. of the bone when we are doing operations such as putting a plate over the bone. Okay, now we come to implants that are being used. These were the instruments that we were using. Now, if you go to any of the orthopedic wards, you see the patients with something like this, giving skeletal traction. Okay, so this is used primarily for skeletal traction, where we put this pin inside the bone. We are putting this inside the bone, like you see here, and we are giving traction to the part or distal to the fracture site to align the fracture such that it will become easier to fix when we are operating on that. Plus, this was the initial treatment before the advent of all the operative surgeries and antibiotics. This was the primary treatment wherein most of the fractures were treated either by plaster or in traction. Okay, so this is the pin that is put in the bone. This is something, a little modification of that, wherein when if the bone is very osteoporotic or very weak, we have the threaded pin. So these threads go into the bone. So hold it for a longer time, get a good grip and prevent slipping of this. Okay, from then we come to various implants that are being put. So we normally divide them into nails, various nails, plates, then screws and wires, and then there are special instruments and special implants. Okay, so this is what is called as a nail. Okay, can you see here? It is a big nail and it goes into the femur, and this is it has a clover shaped leaf. Okay, so this is very important in the history of orthopedics. This was invented by Dr. Kunchner. So it's called as a Gerhard Kunchner. It's called as a K-nail. Okay, so it was actually during the First World War that this was being used. Gerhard Kunchner, it was used in Germany. Prior to this, the treatment of any fracture of the shaft of the femur was just plaster, or the patient was kept in a traction for a very long time. Now what happened is, this scientist, he thought of putting a nail in the hollow medullary cavity of the femur, and he was met with a lot of skepticism and criticism. But then he proved that just after putting the nail in the shaft of the femur, the patients could be those injured in the wars could return to the war field very fast. So many soldiers who were injured, they could go to the war field very fast. It is like an unending, and they could fight again with the enemies, like like you see in any of the war movies or war serials on the Doordarshan these days. Same people coming again and again and again. Now what happens is, this was only in Germany, and then later on, after the war, the secret went out of the world, went out to the entire world. So this has actually changed. This is very important in the history of orthopedics. So this has actually changed the treatment from just putting plasters and external fixators or traction instruments to going to internal fixation. So this is a clover-leaf shaped nail which is used in the femur. Okay, from there we move on. Someone modified it to a V nail. Can you see this V? Okay, so this is called as a V nail. This is put in the tibia, the shape of a V. So this gives some stability. It is used for intramedullary fixation. Intramedullary means in the medullary cavity of the long bones. Okay, so what were the problems with this? The problems with the earlier nails was that they could not prove a rotational stability. Imagine if there is a segmental fracture and you put a nail, it could not provide a rotational stability to the bone. So we came up with new inventions and got these nails. They have holes here. Okay, so I hope you can see those holes. So these holes are used for putting interlocking. These bolts are called as interlocking bolts. So what is the advantage of interlocking bolts? Is first, they will provide a rotational stability, and second is, if there is a lot of combination or there is some gap here, you can hammer back and then put the other screws. Okay, so they will give you some compaction also. Okay, from there we move on to other nails. See, this is shown in the femur and this is in the tibia. So we have another interlocking nail for the tibia also, and now they have come up with multiple holes, and locking in multiple directions. Okay, this is the femur nail for, we call it as proximal femur nail. This is used for the fractures around the hip joint. Okay, the beauty of all these nails, see this, you can see here, beauty of these nails is that you can put it without opening the fracture site. So imagine you have a fracture of the shaft of the femur. Okay, so we don't need to open it here. Okay, just you make a hole from here. Okay, we put something called as a guide wire, and without opening the fracture site, over the guide wire, this is all radiologically controlled. We do it under an image intensifier. So the guide wire goes in the proximal fragment. We do a close reduction. We pull it out to length and a reduction by traction, and then pass the guide wire in the distal fragment. Over the guide wire goes a reamer, which makes the medullary cavity even, and after the guide wire comes off, after the reamer comes out, we put the nail over the guide wire and lock it. It's a very specialized procedure and takes a little bit more time. The learning curve is more, but after a few attempts, we are able to do it. Okay, the advantage is preservation of the hematoma, which is very important for the healing of the fracture. Also, it is cosmetically also very good, because no one would like to have a huge scar on any of the body parts. Okay, so this is like a keyhole surgery. Same thing can be done in the tibia. Okay, and same thing is done in the proximal proximal part of the femur. Okay, this is the X-ray, this is the implant, and this is the X-ray. There was a fracture around here, and we have treated it with this. Okay, then we have, these are all big implants. Okay, can you see the size of the implants? These are used in adults. So we needed something that we could do in children also. So what has been invented is called as a titanium elastic nailing system. Okay, earlier again these fractures were treated with only plasters, and which probably gave rise to some angulation, some rotations, and the patients were not happy with this. So what we did is we have this system of called it titanium elastic nailing system. The same thing is done over here. These are very small nails, and we put two nails either in the femur or in the tibia, and a little different nails in the forearm, radius and ulnar too. Okay, and that gives again a closed procedure, and it gives excellent healing. Now we come to plates. So there are various types of plates also used. The types of plates are compression plates, neutralization plates, buttress plates, and condylar plates. These names are given according to the function that those plates are serving. There can be a compression plate can also act as a buttress plate. Okay, or there can be a combination of the various plates. Now here you see a compression plates. Okay, this is a dynamic compression plate. Okay, you see the holes here, they are not circular. They are little oblong holes. And here you see an X-ray of the plates applied to the radius and ulna. Normally it's a dictum that for the lower limb we prefer nails, and for the proximal, in the upper limb we prefer plates. Also, if you see, we can't use nails in the fracture that is lower down, not somewhere in the center. Okay, if you have to operate in the, suppose, imagine this is a long bone and there is a fracture in the center, the nails can be used. But at places like near the joints, you cannot use the nail. So what we use are plates. So plates are designed mainly for that. Now this is a neutralization plate. There is a comminuted fracture of the fibula. Okay, there is no compression here. We are just neutralizing the forces and holding it in its place so that it will unite. Okay, just maintaining the length. So here this plate acts as a neutralization plate. Coming to buttress plates. Buttress plate is where it will just hold the fracture there. When there are too many fragments proximally, especially used in the upper end of the tibia. Okay, so you can see here, this is the fracture, very nicely reduced, and this plate is just holding it up, giving it just support. There is again no compression here. It is just giving a lateral support to this fracture. This is another view used commonly in the upper end of tibia. This is buttressing. Now we come to condylar plates. Condylar plates are used for the lower end of the femur. Okay, so this is a comminuted fracture of the distal end of femur, and this is a plate which is holding it in its place. This is a specialized plate for the made for the condyle. Okay, then again we have very specialized plates for very small bones. Now you see this is a X-ray of the ankle and this is the calcaneum. There is very little space here. Immediately beyond this is only the skin. So we have very less space here, and so we require very low profile, very thin plates. The plates have to be thin, but at the same time they have to be strong, because the entire body weight is held on the calcaneum. So suppose I want to mobilize this patient faster, I can't just realize if the plate is not very thin, it will break. Okay, so these are specialized plates. Plates are also made of, these are plates usually are made up of titanium, and a titanium plate with all these screws can be pretty expensive. The cost itself can go up to 25 to 30,000 rupees of a single plate with the screws. Okay, and some similar plate for the upper end of humerus. This is called as phyllos, that is proximal humerus interlocking system. Proximal humerus interlocking system. They have variable angles. If you can see here, if you can appreciate, see this screw. These are two divergent screws. Okay, and these screws, they have a specific direction in which they can hold the comminuted part of the humerus. Okay, then again we have seen an intertrochanteric fracture of the femur, like we saw the nail putting. Similarly, this is a screw. This is a dynamic hip screw. It's called as a dynamic hip system, wherein this we will pass this screw first under image intensifier on the in the center of the hip. Okay, this is inside the bone. Okay, and on top of that we slide this plate. Okay, and fix it to the femur lower part with screws. Okay, these are other anatomical plates. Okay, this is the plate of the used at various other regions. This is for the lower end of the humerus. Okay, these are for the distal end of radius. These are very special plates of distal end of radius or and clavicle. Okay, now you are seeing this. This is a screw. Okay, normally till now you have seen that the screws are used in conjunction with plates, wherein you put the plate and put screws according to whatever is required. Like there are 3 screws on each side are required in the upper limb. For the radius, for the humerus, you will require 4 screws on each side, and for the femur, bigger screws. So upper limb screws are 3.5 diameter, lower limb screws are 4.5 diameter, 4.5 millimeters. But screws as such can be used alone also. Like in this, there was a very small fracture here, and we have put 2 screws just to compress it a bit. Okay, you can see some headless screws also. These are headed screws, and at places where it's an articular part, wherein the head cannot remain outside, like we are using in the scaphoid bone or in the talus. So we have something called as a headless screws. Those are called as Herbert screws. Okay, these are the various sizes and shapes of the screws. Now we also put screws in the spine also. Okay, can you see here? This is a pedicle screw. This is the body of the spine. And, okay, and we are putting screw in the pedicle of the body. So this is used in fractures of the spine, and also when one vertebra slips over another. This is called as spondylolisthesis. Okay, so we reduce it, and we have to be very careful because this is the space from where the nerve root comes out. Okay, so these are specialized screws for spine. Then we come to smaller implants. These are called as Kirschner wires. Okay, these come in 2 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter, 3 millimeters, even less, 1.5 and 1.8 millimeter. These are used at the ends of bones, like a Colles fracture. You must have heard of Colles fracture, or nowadays we call them as distal end radius fractures. So for distal end of radius fractures, what we do is we do again a close reduction. There is no stitch here, nothing. Everything is done under the image intensifier. We have a live radiograph there, and we give traction, and after giving traction, we get it in its place, and we pass these small wires. Okay, so this is the anteroposterior and the lateral view of a reduced distal end radius fracture fixed with K wires, and usually we supplement it with a plaster. Okay, so this white thing that is looking is a plaster. Then again the K wires are also used in conjunction with a stainless steel wire. So these are stainless steel wire which are autoclaved, and these are put around the K wires. Okay, these are the two K wires which we have bent it here and put around the K wires. Now this is a very interesting principle. After you do this figure of 8 bandage, it's called as a tension band wiring. So what happens is, this is the patella, it's the quadriceps tendon pulling, it's the patellar tendon pulling it down. We put two K wires, and when we do this figure, this construct, what happens is the distraction forces, traction forces are converted into compression forces. Okay, so this is a very important principle in orthopedics. The traction forces are converted into compression forces. This is called a tension band wiring. Now here, the more you move, there will be more compression at the fracture site, and it will help in healing faster, healing of the fracture faster. If that had not been, we would have put a very big plaster right from the thigh to the ankle. So that is prevented by this way. Then we come to joint replacements. So this is the first thing that comes in joint replacement. This is called as a Austin Moore prosthesis. This is used especially in elderly patients, very old patient wherein they have a fracture of the femoral neck. Okay, so this is the femur. There is a fracture of the femoral neck. There are various issues in fractures of the femoral neck. The blood supply is gone, so this part is avascular. There is because it happens in elderly people, there is a lot of problems with union. So we don't want to do multiple surgeries for the elderly people. So what we do is we remove the head and just put something called as a Austin Moore prosthesis. Okay, and this is Austin Moore prosthesis, and this is a little modification of that, and that's called as a bipolar prosthesis. Okay, so this you see there was a fracture here, and we have put a Austin Moore prosthesis, and the patient keeps walking on this. Okay, and this is a bipolar prosthesis. So what is the modification is? In this, there is only one head that is articulating with the acetabulum, while as here, this is in bipolar, there are two articulations. First is the head will articulate with this stainless steel, and this stainless steel will articulate with the inner head, here. So this is called as a bipolar because movement is occurring at two sides. Okay. From that we come to total hip arthroplasty. So now we have come from a partial replacement to a total replacement. This is usually done in young patients, patients who have their hip bone because of some reason the femoral head is deceased. The commonest cause is avascular necrosis of femoral head. Now what are we changing here? We are changing the femoral head. This is the stem that we were already doing in Austin Moore prosthesis. Plus we are changing the acetabulum also. So this is the acetabular cup, and in between we have a very high density plastic. Okay, so that there is less of wear and tear. We can't obviously have steel over steel, so we have a plastic in between. So there is less of there is no wear and tear, minimum wear and tear. Okay, so these are the imported implants. Okay, and this is the X-ray of the total hip replacement done. Okay, this screw fixes the acetabular implant in the pelvis. Now we are also doing a total hip replacement. Now this is a golden knee, total knee replacement. So this is a golden knee. Now people quite often ask me, what is a total knee replacement? Are you going to replace my entire knee? So actually what is being replaced is not the entire knee. See, you see this is hollow. Okay, we are just replacing the articular surface. Okay, can you see this is hollow? So we are just replacing the articular surface. So articular surface of the femur, articular surface of the tibia, that is being cut accordingly, and this is again a poly. Okay, so this is a total hip replacement, and this is the X-ray of the total hip replacement being done. Total knee replacement being done. Okay, then we come to external fixator. Those of you who have visited hospitals or those of you who have come to orthopedics ward must have seen this quite often. Now, what is the reason, what is the use for? We have seen plates, we have seen nails. So the important thing is all these nails and plates can be used only when there is no wound here, okay, or when there is no infection. If there is a lot of contamination and we put nail inside or we put a plate on the surface, it is likely to get infected. So now what is happening is we are controlling this from outside. So these pins are going in the tibia and fibula, sorry, in the tibia, and we connect it to an external fixator. And the external fixator has to be really very sturdy so that we can mobilize the patient as early as possible. So this is the only one unilateral fixator. This is only on one side. Okay, it does not give you total stability. So we have come with something called as a Ilizarov fixator. Now these are rings which are put on the leg, and it gives total stability on in all the 360 all the 360 direction, in all directions. Okay, and these are the titanium pins that are there going inside the bone. Okay, so what is the use? Why this has been invented is because of this. Suppose you have something wherein there is no bone over here. So how do you expect this to heal? So we have something called as a distraction osteogenesis. Now what is done is the upper part and the lower part is fixed with these rings, and we do something called as a corticotomy, wherein we cut the bone over here. That is the magic of Ilizarov. It's called as the magic of Ilizarov. It's a Russian technique. We cut the bone over here, and then very gradually, after a period of around 7 days, very gradually, at the rate of 1 millimeter per day, we distract. That means we increase the distance between this second ring and third ring. And what happens after some days, you see that new bone is being formed over here. This is the new bone that is being formed, and this gap is being filled up. Okay, so this bone is coming near this, and this will eventually unite, and this is being filled up with new bone. This is called as distraction osteogenesis. Okay, so this is one of these examples of that. Not exactly what we have done here, but a little modification wherein this patient had a very comminuted fracture. Can you see? It's comminuted right from here. It's going right from here till almost here. Okay, so this would have required a very big plate. Nail is not possible in this area. So we have fixed this with the Ilizarov. And this is this is not the first X-ray. You can see some sclerosis here. So it's uniting. Okay, and we have done some corticotomy here. We were planning to just decrease some distance here. Okay. And now coming to what is called as arthroscopy. So this is a arthroscope. Arthroscope means it's a 4 millimeter apparatus, only a 4 millimeter, something that you want to do for your knee. Okay, earlier what has any injury of the knee had to be opened entirely. Now it was with the scope we don't have to. It's called as a keyhole surgery. This is a arthroscope. A 4 millimeter rod goes inside the joint, and to it is attached the camera, and so you can on the TV you can see the whatever is inside. It is magnified, and you can do ACL reconstructions. All the we have only video, please. Is the video playing? Yeah, so that's the knee. Okay, so this is the patella. These are the meniscus. This is the anterior cruciate ligament, medial meniscus, and lateral meniscus. This is the meniscus that is torn. The medial meniscus is torn. So this is the okay. So this is the the steroid injection. Yeah, this is the arthroscope. Now it's going inside. Okay, can you see this? So this is the magnified view. This is a shaver, a motorized shaver, wherein if it is repairable, you can repair the meniscus, or if it's a very small part, that is shaved off and sucked inside the shaver. So that is called as partial meniscectomy. Okay, this is the last one. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Now, from the audience, if you have any doubt, you can raise your hand and we'll give you a chance one by one. For any doubt, please raise your hand. You will see the raise hand button in your menu bar. The participants, if you have any question, any doubt, please raise your hand. We'll give you the chance to ask your question. Yes. Pratik, yes. We see Pratik, you can now unmute yourself. You can ask your question. Pratik. Unmute. Unmute Pratik. Super. Maybe. Anyway, any other question? Any other participants who want to ask any question? Please raise your hand. Chat box. Go to chat box. No, in a participant list, there was one thing. Any other question? No.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. I had one question. Myself,
Okay.
Pooja Tamane from Mumbai. I wanted to ask, sir, can you please throw some light upon load bearing and load sharing implants?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should I answer this? Hello. Just take this back. PPT. So very good question. So you see, let's take this example. Okay, so if there is the nail is intramedullary. Okay, so now when there is a very good reduction, what happens is whenever the patient bears weight, now part of the load is taken by the nail, and the part of the bone is taken part of the load is taken by the bone also. So this becomes a load sharing implant. While as if you see here, suppose you see this. Now what happens is, because let's see this. Now what happens is, here this is a plate. Now whatever load is being transmitted to the bone is directly taken up by the plate. Okay, so this is a load bearing implant. Now, what happens? What are the problems with load-bearing implants? Is that the bone below the plate has not borne any load, so this becomes a very weak bone. Okay, there is osteoporosis of this bone. So, in general, the thing is like a plate is a load-sharing implant. Load-bearing implant, while as a nail is a load-sharing implant. That is what I said. Most of the time, it, a general rule kind of thing is that in the lower limb we prefer nails, while as in the upper limb we prefer plates, because in upper limb it's not much of a problem of load bearing or sharing. Does that answer your question?
Okay, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yes. Aditi. Aditi, Q1212. Yes, you can ask your question. Aditi, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, ask.
Sir, I wanted to ask you a question. What are the major complications of intramedullary implants, sir?
So the major complications of intramedullary implant will be like major complications of any surgery, first of all. Like there can be infection and all, but the most dreaded complication is something called as a fat embolism. What are we doing here in this bone is we are doing it as a closed surgery. Now we are putting a guide wire inside this and we are reaming over. Okay, so to make the medullary cavity even so that we can pass a proper nail. So what can happen during this surgery is there is some fat globules are generated in this and they can go to the circulation and cause fat embolism either in the pulmonary circulation or in the cerebral circulation. So this is a very dreaded complication. You can lose the patient on table also. So, but this is very, very rare. The incidence will be something around 1 in 1 lakh. So that is the major complication. And then there are other complications that you can might just cause more comminution because you are hammering it inside. Okay, if you are not very doing it properly, you can just while passing the nail from here, you can hammer where you can cause a more damage to the bone. Apart from that, there are no major complications. Then sometimes it is very difficult to get this across because then if you can imagine, I mean, if you can, this is inside the bone and these are very small holes. So putting this under the CM image intensifier, sometimes you might not get it properly, and it takes a lot of time. Plus, there is a lot of radiation, especially to the surgeon. So those are the various complications. There can be little more of blood loss because of reaming. Okay, so these are the complications.
Good morning, sir. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, this is Shraddha Nagmode. So I want to ask you a question regarding if the patient is having lateral end of clavicle fracture, then which implant will be preferred to fix it?
Yeah, so there are various options for lateral end of clavicle fractures. If it is not very displaced, you can just treat it conservatively. Okay, if it's displaced, you can just put 2K wire that somewhere I have showed. These are the 2K wire. These can also be put. And then we have some special plates that have come. So this is the plate. It's called as a hook plate. Can you see this? This part goes under the acromion and this stays over the clavicle. So that is a hook plate that can be used for lateral end of clavicle.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Good morning, sir.
Yes. Who is this?
My question
Yeah,
sir,
go
I'm
ahead.
Prasad. My question is in internal hemipelvectomy cases like type 2, why the implant is not being used?
We are not doing hemipelvic. That is a very specialized subject. Those only the oncosurgeons are doing it. That is also carried out at a very few places in the world. We don't do hemipelvectomies.
But sir, why the implant is not? Because it is very important for physiotherapy to rehab that type of patient.
Are you talking of a hemiarthroplasty or a hemipelvectomy? Hemiarthroplasty is just removing of the head. Hemipelvectomy is like removing the half of the pelvis. If you are talking of this, it's okay. We are putting an implant. And if you are talking of hemipelvectomy, I am sorry, I don't have any experience with that. So I will not be able to answer your question.
Okay, sir.
Did you get the idea?
Right. Sakshi Jain, your question. You can ask your question, Sakshi Jain. Unmute yourself.
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Sir, actually, I wanted to know what is healing time for compound fracture and when to take the repeat X-rays for that.
Yeah. So what is the healing time for compound fracture? So it depends on which bone is there. Okay, whether it is a simple fracture, how compound is the fracture. If it's a tibia, it can go around more than 4 to 5, 6 months. If it's something like this, here the fixator can stay on your leg for more than a year also. So it depends on what fracture it is, what is the treatment being taken. When are we taking the X-rays? Yes. So when we take the X-ray, first X-ray is immediately post-op. Okay. So this is not a post-op X-ray. The first X-ray is immediately post-op to see what is the status after we have put the fixator, whether the bones are aligned or not. Okay. Even with the internal fixation, when we are putting a plate or when we are putting the nail, the first X-ray is taken immediately post-operatively. And then after every 1.5 months, we repeat the X-ray and as and when required. So union in this fracture will take around maybe 9 months. Whereas a very simple fracture will unite in the tibia, will unite within maybe 6 months. While as a distal and radius fracture, something like this will unite in 6 weeks. So upper limb fractures will unite faster. Lower limb fractures will take twice the time. Then upper fractures in children will heal faster, while as fractures in adults will again take more time. And again, depending on your very simple fracture, just a small fracture will unite faster than a compound fracture.
Right. Jasmine Sheikh, you can ask your question. Unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, is there any possibilities of auto rejection after surgery by body?
Normally, these are stainless steel metals and all, so there is no auto rejection in this. These are very time tested. What we use here is a stainless steel is 316L stainless steel, and then these are titanium, and the joints that are being all molybdenum and different vitalium. All these time tested ones are there. A lot of research goes on before putting these implants. So there is no auto rejection. It's not like you are doing some kidney transplant or something that these are all inert. The problems are not of auto rejection. The problems are more of wear and tear, especially when we are doing joints. So this poly is very important. It has to be very high density poly. Did you get it? So okay, no auto rejection. No auto rejection.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other question from any other participant?
Hello.
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 Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, what are the precautions to be taken during immediate rehabilitation of TKR and THR, sir?
So precautions taken by the patients?
Yes, sir. Precaution taken by the patient as well as for the therapist.
For the hip, we don't ask them to squat or sit cross-legged because these are made in the West. And what happens? There are chances of dislocation. So if we are doing it for the hip, we don't ask them to sit cross-legged or squat. It's mainly a table chair. table chair lifestyle, like the West. They don't sit on the floor to eat, and they use commode for this passing stools and all. For the knee, not much, except that again don't flex it beyond 90 degrees. Since it is done in old age, we don't expect the patient to like do marathon running after doing a total knee replacement. They can walk and all, but no running. Okay.
Any other question from any other participants?
Good morning, sir. I have one question.
Please introduce yourself.
Sir, myself, Pragati. My question is, does implants are selected according to the body weight?
Not really. Only the size. Body weight means 50 kg, 60 kg, 70 kg doesn't matter. The body, they are made like that. Of course, if it's a very obese patient, then the longevity of the replacements. You're talking of replacement. In just putting a nail or a plate, it doesn't matter. But if it's a replacement, the longevity. Normally, what we say is a longevity of a knee replacement or a hip replacement is 15 years. So if the patient is morbidly obese, I am saying morbidly obese, then the longevity might come down. So in general, if you are doing, it's a planned surgery. Total knee replacement or total hip replacement is not done in fracture. So it's a planned surgery. So we encourage the patient to lose weight, or sometimes even undergo bariatric surgery to lose weight, and then maybe think of a knee replacement in morbid patients.
Right. Any other question? So there is one more question from Dr. Suraj, my colleague. Come, Suraj, you can ask your question, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I want to ask you that what is the difference between a locking compression plate and a dynamic compression plate, sir?
Yeah. So again, we come to that. Like I've already spoken. See, I put this plate. Okay. So what happens is, if it's a compression plate, this is not a compression plate, but if this is a compression plate, what happens is more load, total load is being taken up by the plate, and so there is osteoporosis below the plate. Okay. So we come to the. So this is a dynamic compression plate. Now you see the holes here and see the holes here. Okay. So now here what happens is, once you as soon as you tighten the bone, tighten the screw will push the plates towards the bone. Okay. And this is applied in a compression mode, while as locking plates are more like external fixators. Now what happens is, these are called as internal fixators. So there might be little space between the bone and the plate. So see this, the screw will lock here. Okay, and it will just maintain the alignment. There will be no compression. So that is called as and it gives a very good hold in osteoporotic bones. So that is a locking compression, locking plate. Okay, so it has a multitude option of putting a compression screw also and a locking screw also.
Thank you so much, sir.
Simple Mende. Simple, yes, you can ask your question. Unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
I am not gone into too much of detail, because if you go into too much of detail, this presentation will be more than 2 hours. Okay, so I have just tried to cover it everything in a very short span. One thing just I wanted to just add up is what are the advantages of titanium plates? Because this is a very important for everyone to know. This is a stainless steel plate. So if you put this plate, you will not be able to do a MRI post-operative. You can't do a MRI. Suppose this patient has upper end of tibia fracture and also some ligament injury. So with this plate, with a stainless steel plate, you will not be able to do an MRI. But whereas if you use a titanium plate, you can do MRI of the patient. That is just one addition.
Right. Okay, Simple, you can ask your question.
Yes, sir. My first question is about the causes of the osteomyelitis. So what will be the causes? And my second question is, what about the internal fixators? I have seen in some cases they are kept permanent, and in some cases they are removed.
Yeah.
So, sir, can you
So
enlighten?
most of the times we don't remove the implants. I generally discourage patients from removing the implants. We remove the implants only when it's the patient's demand. What happens is after the plate has served the purpose, the bone has united. Okay. So it has got no purpose in the body. But removing the implant is another surgery. Okay, it is you have to like it's another surgery, which I feel is if the patient will insist, then only we remove the implant. Otherwise, we just keep it at there. Another indication will be like you asked osteomyelitis. So that is something probably because of some reason if the plate gets infected, it is loose. If it gets infected, automatically it becomes loose. Then we remove the plate. Sometimes the plate breaks, then we remove the plate. So otherwise, it is not a routine surgery to remove the plate.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So it's a race. Once you played this, especially where you see it's a race. See what is happening is bones is a live structure, while as plate is not a live structure. So there is a race between the plate, the bone union, and the strength of the plate. Gradually, because of all the walking and all, there might be the plate is likely to break if the bone doesn't unite. Okay, this is another concept. People think that the plate under lag gaya, so काम हो गया. It's not that. The plate is just there till the time that to hold the bone. So if the bone doesn't unite, we have seen plates breaking, and even the nails also breaking.
Yes, sir.
Of course, if there's some complication, we have to remove it. Otherwise, we routinely don't remove it. Also, we come here. Suppose these are of course routinely removed. These are outside. After 6 weeks, we remove the wires because these are not the ends are outside the bone. And in this, now you see the patella is very subcutaneous bone, and there is wire and this. This usually sometimes in subcutaneous bone gives rise to problems like bursitis and all. So these are easier to remove. It's not a very big surgery, so we remove this. Okay. Also at places like olecranon, maybe lateral malleolus. So whichever are palpable are giving some trouble, we can remove those.
Yes.
Any other question? Right. So I think we have the doubts has been cleared for all the participants. Now we are at the end, at the closing of the session. Thank you so much, sir, Dr. Prafulla, sir, for your resourceful presentation.
Thank you very much. I hope I have cleared all the doubts, and you have got a little bit idea of what goes on in the operation theaters in orthopedics.
Exactly, sir. Definitely. We got the idea about the different kind of nails, different kind of plates, the different types of screws, wires, and we have also studied the arthroplasty, replacement, external fixators, Ilizaros, and arthroscopy. In this short span of time, in this short span of lecture, so much thing has been included. So thankful to you, sir. You have enlightened us with all these kind of topics. And I feel, and I definitely am sure that all the participants get something very for their practice or for their future. They will get something from this webinar. And for this, we are very much thankful to you, sir. And now, thank you. And we are now we are closing this webinar. Thank you all participants for your patient hearing.
Yeah, thank all the participants also. And thank you, sir, too. And thanks, Pravara Medical Trust, for giving me an opportunity to give this online webinar. Thank you so much.
All the participants, I request you, we'll send you the feedback link. We'll mail you and we'll send you in the WhatsApp group also. Please spare some time to rate us and to give your valuable feedback so that we'll uplift ourselves in our next webinar. Thank you so much.